Hello and welcome to the second video looking at the skills available to the player in Mass Effect Andromeda. So in this video we're going to be looking at biotics. So you'll notice some of them are grayed out at the moment. That's because I've spent no points in biotics, and these all require 9 skill points to unlock. Unless you've chosen the biotics from the beginning, in which case you get Singularity and Barrier, I believe. So, starting at the top here, we have Pull. So, Pull has two options. You can either tap or hold. Tap just lifts an unshielded, unarmored, and that is an important thing to note, into the air and primes them for a combo detonator. So, biotics has a good number of both primers and detonators in it. Or if you hold it, you can actually drag the target enemy or object along with you, and you can combine this with throw to hurl the target. So as you can see there, decent duration and recharge time. So our rank 2 straight up recharge time, rank 3 duration. So rank 4, our first choice, we can either go with even longer duration, or we can go with a radius. So now we can pull up to 2 enemies within a 4-meter radius. Rank 5 here, we get crushing grip. So damage per second is 35. Now it's while in the air. So at this point we started off with a duration of 5, and we've already picked up a 40% at rank 3, and if we went with rank 4 duration, it's another 50%. We've almost doubled that up to 100%, so it should be somewhere close to 10 seconds at this point. So that's a decent whack of damage you can potentially be doing. Or expose, so they take more damage from all sources. It's a nice little 30%. We can then make it either anti-shields, so shield damage bonus is 600, which is a little different to most anti-shields. Most are just a straight up 50% damage increase, but as this doesn't do damage unless you select crushing grip, instead we get this. It drains the shields on initial hit, but as it says there, whose shields endure still cannot be lifted or held. So if they've got a higher level of shields, it still will not do anything, but potentially useful for draining the shields for maybe some of your other biotic combos. So you can also do this. While you're holding an enemy, you restore 10% of your shield per second. Obviously potentially useful. So Pull's a pretty good all-rounder within the biotics. It's generally useful. In particular, combines really well with throw here. It even says it in its write-up. So this is a detonator. So Pull was a primer, throw is a detonator. So we got 850 force, damage on world collision is 250, so if you throw them into something they take another 250 damage, and it's got a recharge time of 10 seconds, which we can lower. We can increase the damage and force. Then at rank 4 we can either increase that even more, or we can give it a radius. Rank 5 we can increase the duration, or we can give it even less recharge time. Rank 6 we get double throw, so this launches 2 projectiles that seek separate enemies. So if you just have throw, which it's showing here, you can actually launch 2 projectiles. Swift detonation, so we get more damage and an increase again to our recharge speed. So you can really lower the recharge speed quite a lot on this, and combine that with the other ways you can lower recharge speed in general on powers. You could be using this quite regularly. Right, charge. So this is a detonator, and is what it does, as the video here is showing, it allows you to charge towards enemies. practically blinking at them. Quite a bit of damage and force where you land, plus you get 50% of your shields restored. Recharge speed, damage and force for our rank 2, rank 3. Rank 4, we can get more damage, more force, or we can give it a radius. Decent too at 3.5, so you can essentially now charge into a group of enemies and do damage. Rank 5, so for 3 seconds after charging, you get a bonus to both gun and melee damage. Or power synergy, so it enhances all powers for 5 seconds after charging. You get both a bonus to damage and force. And at rank 6, we get Shock Trooper, so essentially we're almost eliminating the recharge speed on this once we've totaled up all our recharge bonuses. Or Bastion, which is fully restore shields and reduce incoming damage for 5 seconds after doing it. So you get damage resistance to 75, 50% shields, and what isn't mentioned over here, you also get a nice 35% damage increase. So Charge does also have a nice one it goes with, which is Shockwave, but sorry, not Shockwave, Nova. And Nova here is its good counterpart. So, unlocks. High damage explosion. So the idea behind this is I would go with Charge, and I would go with increasing my power synergy. Maybe that. It's hard to tell, but definitely my power synergy, because this combined with coming in with a charge is going to do a lot of damage to those enemies. And there's another semi-passive ability that we'll look at in a second that also works well with those two. Right, we can increase our radius, we can increase our damage and force. Rank 4, we can do one of those again. Rank 5, we get a choice between anti-armor and anti-shield, quite a hefty 60% either way. Rank 6, we can turn it into a primer, as well as increasing our damage and force. Or shield powered. So, it now has no recharge time, but consumes shields when used. So, yeah. And it costs all of them. But potentially you can charge in, detonate this, and wipe out everything in an area anyhow, so there may not be any enemies left to shoot back at you. Right, now we have Shockwave. So, this has actually got a relatively short distance on it. So it is a detonator. It is quite decent though. Decent amount of damage and force. It's got an effect radius of 1.5. It's actually the range though that's the thing. I found that radius is enough, but the range is actually relatively short, so you do have to be relatively close. But it will go through cover, so that's a positive. 15-second recharge time, which we can lower, plus increase our damage and force. Damage and force again, or radius. Recharge speed. Reach. Yes, very useful. We can either make it anti-armor, or we can make it a primer. So it becomes both a primer and a detonator. Now, I haven't got to try it with this, but I have done something similar in the tech skill tree, where I have an ability that is both a primer and a detonator. And essentially I can use it to detonate one. It stays lingering as a primer, and I can hit that to detonate again, essentially allowing for double detonation on something. So I would have to imagine they all work the same way, and it can make for a rather devastating combo where you have maybe a larger, tougher enemy surrounded by some smaller ones, and you double prime, double detonate the bigger enemy. Not only do you do a large amount of damage to it, you generally will kill any of the smaller enemies around it. Right, now we have Annihilation. So this is the one that I would combo with Nova and Charge. So like I said, it's semi-passive. It's semi-passive in that it does require you to activate. But once you activate it, it stays active for quite a while. But other powers activated while Annihilation is in use suffer reduced recharge speed. So it does have an 8-second recharge time. Recharge penalty is 60%. Damage per second, that was 55, with an effect radius of 3.5. So the idea here would be that you turn this on, and because it is a primer, you then charge, you then detonate with Nova, and oh boy, there is probably nothing living within that 3.5 meter radius around you. Recharge penalty, we can make that a little bit less, and we can increase the damage by 15%. Then we can either go with an even bigger radius, or again lower our recharge penalty. Rank 5, we can go with a damage attractor. So affected enemies take 20% additional damage from all sources. So if you're doing the charge Nova combo, well, they're going to take even more damage when you do it. Biotic wind. So this actually increases the movement speed while within Annihilation's radius. So obviously you'll definitely be in it, but if your allies are in there as well, that's a nice 25% movement speed. Draining field, so shield restored 30% for you and allies within 8 meters when an enemy affected by Annihilation dies. But again, right combos, they're going to be dying because it's just affected. Annihilation doesn't actually have to do the killing blow, they just have to be affected by it. Or we have Vortex, so unarmored, unshielded, normal sized enemies, so pretty much anything more or less human size, are lifted into the air for 8 seconds. Each enemy can only be affected once every 15 seconds. So as you can see, this has quite a decent amount of ability to combo really well with Charge and Nova. I mean, generally useful, obviously, but you have to be within 3.5 meters of enemies, or a little bit bigger if you go with the radius increase, for it to work. Now, I know Biotics is generally considered something you run at a bit closer range anyhow, but not my preference to be that close, especially as it's usually also very hard to be within cover and be that close. Still, it does combo really well if you want to run that type of setup. Right, now we have Backlash. So Backlash is a nice, interesting ability they've added in here. Essentially, it's a biotic shield. So it has 300 health, projectile damage returned 120%. So whatever they're throwing back at, you're throwing it back harder. You get 75 to your frontal damage resistance. It does have quite a large recharge time, probably not surprising. You can affect that recharge speed and your durability. Durability and recharge speed again. Durability again. So you can get quite a lot of extra durability here. Or you can, now at rank 5, increase your projectile damage return by 100%. That's a lot. Shield resurgence, so restore shield over 3 seconds after releasing Backlash. Can restore up to 50% of shield strength scaled to damage absorbed by the Aegis. And damage aftermath, so this increases damage inflicted for 3 seconds after releasing Backlash. Scales with the amount of damage absorbed. Gun, power and melee all get affected. Of course, if you've done stuff like picking this at rank 5, there may not actually be anything left to shoot at anyhow. Right, Singularity. This is the Biotic's big one. So, as you can see in the lovely video here, we get sort of more or less a mini black hole that primes enemies. So if you want to end it early, you can always tap the button again. So it does 35 damage per second along with priming, has a 3 meter radius, an 8-second duration and a recharge time of 24 seconds. Which we can again lower our recharge, increase our damage, and at rank 4 we can increase our duration or our effect radius. Rank 5 we can make it anti-shield, quite a large amount of anti-shield. Keep in mind that a lot of other biotic abilities do require the target to have no shield for full effectiveness, so could be something to keep in mind. Recharge speed, and then we can either go with, at rank 6, Exploding Singularity. So after the effect ends, which remember you can do that manually, you can deal damage in a 7 meter radius, 350, decent amount. Or Expanding. So its radius now actually expands by 200% over the lifetime. So it will more than double in size. So something to keep in mind. And Lance, our last active ability. So this is a detonator. And it is quite a decent direct damage ability. Decent amount of damage, quite a large amount of force. It's pretty much only affecting whatever you throw it at. Pretty decent cooldown time, which we can lower. We can increase our damage and force. And then at rank 4 we get a choice between damage and force or radius. So might actually now affect other things. We can give a focus blast. So if you actually believe you can aim this well enough to hit people in the head / weak points, you will get more damage. Or you can make it anti-shield. It's not a large amount extra, but this does a decent amount of damage to begin with. Knockdown. So enemies within 1.5 meters of the blast impact are knocked to the ground. Only unarmored, unshielded, normal size enemies are affected. But 20% damage, 20% force. Or shield powered. So at a cost of 45% of your shields, you can essentially get rid of the recharge time and use this as often as you like. Now, admittedly, Biotics does sort of make up for your having to give up shields if you want on some of its abilities by giving you barrier, which increases your max shields. So this is based on your skill points invested in the Biotic skill group in total. It is 2% per skill point. So more skill points in Biotics, bigger shield boost. So you then get your barrier speed. So this decreases the delay before they begin regenerating, and that's health and shield. And then this increases the actual shield regeneration speed. So all this sort of helps make up for the fact that you may, if you choose, use shields over having cooldowns on some of your abilities. So Unyielding Barrier, just straight up 10% extra shields, or Recuperative, so 10% health and shield again, delay reduction, and increase the amount that it's done. Biotic Link. So increases maximum shield strength while a biotic effect is active upon an enemy. So max shields when active is 40% extra. It's not hard to have enemies affected by biotics. Biotic Alacrity reduces weapon weight and improves speed while shields are active. For biotic powers that deplete shields to activate, shield cost is reduced. So that's 10%. It's not bad. 10% extra weapon weight and 10% movement speed while shields are active. Active Barrier, so 10% on biotic kill, and it also affects squad mates within 6 meters, which isn't too bad. Although I didn't really find them dying too much of an issue, so take that as you will. And it automatically restores shields to full strength while at low health once every 10 seconds. So it's 100%. Your low health threshold is 25%, which is the base recharge point. So fairly nice bunch of passives there, really. Then we go into our offensive biotics. So again, these first three will be based on the amount that you have invested overall. 2% to your power damage, 2% to the recharge speed, and 2% to your detonator damage bonus. Rank 4, we get a choice between Amplitude, just straight up damage, or Alacrity, straight up recharge speed. Rank 5, Exploitation. So increases damage from all sources against enemies suffering ongoing effects of the user's biotic powers. So this can really just... Biotics really allows for a large multiplication of damage. It really does. Or increases your combo detonation damage from biotic detonators and increases the radius of all combo detonations. Now keep in mind that generally speaking, each of your companions will have usually one primer, one detonator. Some may require you to set that up with points that you spend in them. Biotic Expert. So power damage increases your power damage for 3 seconds after using a biotic power. Or Biotic Warrior. So it increases weapon and melee damage for 3 seconds after using a biotic power. During this time, melee attacks also knock down unarmored, unshielded, standard size enemies. So 15% to your melee force and 15% to both weapon and melee damage. And our final passive, Containment. So again, these first three will have our nice little increase per skill point spent in the group. 2% to our duration, 2% to the force, 5% to biotic restoration and defense. So this restoration is essentially stuff like the I hit it, I get shields back, that sort of stuff. Defense, like I said, that's you to biotic abilities coming at you, and force is, well, force. Anti-shield, so 2% biotic damage bonus to shields. This is quite useful as we've seen. Most require them to not have shields, so if you can get rid of the shields a little bit quicker, so much the better. Radius, yep, straight up increase to biotic area of effect radius. Duration increase. Rank 5, shield detonation, so 50% all combo damage versus shields. Or our concussive detonation, which is combo detonators knock down unarmored, unshielded, normal sized enemies. So just in case you're wondering, no, you can't get rid of armor once a armored enemy, which is denoted by having a yellow health bar. Once you get rid of the yellow health bar, they're just dead. They just have that instead. They just, one, can't be affected by some biotics. They take less damage from other sources. Manifold duration, so increases the duration of biotic power effects by 10% per affected enemy. So especially with something like Singularity, which has a fairly large area of effect and can affect a lot of enemies, can be quite good. And then Event Horizon, so this increases the radius and force of all biotic area effects. So as you can see, Biotics really is about multiplication upon multiplication of those biotic abilities on an enemy. So a lot of combos, a lot of synergy between the abilities within Biotics. It really is the one with that probably that most amount of synergy. I mean, Tech does have a little bit, which we'll get into. As you can see, it is my preferred loadout. But certainly Biotics has the ability to do large amounts of damage in an area very quickly. But it does tend to have longer cooldowns to make this up. Or, as you saw with certain abilities, you can get rid of the cooldowns by spending shields. So that's Biotics. I will be doing another video covering Tech, and that will be the last of the videos. So I hope you can join us for that.